Moosin here. I know it's been a hot minute since we talked about doing a Guardian specific base hitting video, but fret not, you're here. And I am ready to help you up your game into ensuring that you are not going to lose the base. So during this video, we are going to be talking about communications, as well as player positioning, some special circumstances, rotation, and of course add-ons to help you ensure you keep that base. So let's go ahead and let's jump into it because those flags aren't going to keep themselves. Since the PvP changes earlier on in this expansion, time it takes to cap a base remains the same at 6, although we will be seeing some of those changes when we are looking at the new Battleground Blitz that's going live. But for at least right now in rated play, 6 seconds is the time to beat. In addition to that, the maximum CC currently that you can sit is also 6 seconds. If you haven't already, I would recommend watching my previous base sitting video as we talk about general base sitting as a whole and the important parts behind it. Now, I am going to go back and I am going to touch on some of those, but this guide in particular is going to be more so focused on the Guardian in the base sitting role. But if you haven't seen it already, I'll include a link at the end of the video so you can get caught up real quick. Beginning first with communications. 11 out of 10 dentists agree. Without good comms, you're going to have a bad time. And poor communications tend to be the crutch for any good base sitter. If you're looking at it as a whole, you have to remember, we all have a job. Your DPS are zug-zugging, your healers are pulling out their hair trying to keep the DPS up, and most base hitters are over there smelling the flowers. Don't get me wrong, everyone loves their flowers, especially my wife. However, as a base sitter, you have to be proactive. So taking a look, scrolling through the map, seeing who's missing, who's peeling, I mean, as much as calling out to what healers are drinking or stopping drinks. This does take some practice and there are some add-ons there to assist you, but as you are sitting a base, the top priority you should be doing is going through battleground enemies and making sure you know where everyone is. This includes looking to see how many are stealthed or even abnormal movements of the enemy team. Rounding out communication. No one can help you if they don't know what's going on. So be sure to continue to call things out to make sure you get the help that you need. For example, in this clip, you just saw that I just got double hit by a boomy and a rogue. Thankfully, since I had called it out earlier, we were able to get the priest to come and peel, and I saved my trinket. Mind you, not everyone listens, and it doesn't always go that way. So be sure that you're communicating for help until it arrives, and if you use your trinket, let everyone know, because you should not be sitting by yourself at that point. Turning our attention to positioning, you have to remember, as a Guardian, your whole purpose is to stay alive. Don't die. You're literally just buying time until your team can come help you based on your communication. But this doesn't mean that you are face taking the damage. In general, you should be focusing on finding those LOS corners, dodging CC, and generally not fighting fair. Let alone, most importantly, never turning your camera on the flag. As I've made mention in my previous video, max range to spin with a Moonfire is going to be your best friend. Now, as I continue to talk about a couple things, I will be putting some pictures up here with some creative positioning. You can still spin with Moonfire. However, if you are being hit by more than one player, it does change things at that point, which really highlights the importance of constantly knowing who's missing and who's where, because generally, you should not lose a base to only one player. When being hit by multiple people, it does change when playing Guardian Druid. At that point, you do want to move to stand on the flag to spin. That way you can utilize your bark skin. Now, we will go more into that when we start looking at the spinning rotation, but this assists you with the diminishing returns, as well as ensuring you spin through CCs. Rounding out positioning, we'll briefly touch on special circumstances. If a rogue is missing, just assume that he's going to be hitting as well. The big abilities there that you want to look out for are going to be Duel, which puts you into a shadowy realm, which will require you to be standing on the flag to effectively spin. Smoke Bomb, as well as Shroud, which only lasts 5 seconds, so you can spin outside of that window. A Mage's Ice Wall, a Monk's Guided Meditation, and lastly, a Hunter's Interlope. In relation to the last one, though, I would certainly be sure to position yourself on the flag to be able to in-cap Roar, as well as follow it up with a Bark Skin. Now, if you are not familiar with any of these special abilities, I highly recommend you go back and watch my first base guide video, as I go in a bit more detail. One of the biggest questions I end up getting is, what does the rotation actually look like when it comes to spinning a flag? Thankfully, it's actually not that bad. Your spin rotation largely consists of Moonfire for range, Thrash for your mid-ground, In-Cap if you need a disrupt, and then Barkskin for when you're sitting CCs. Mind you, Barkskin does not work during disorients. So that's going to be things like Cyclone, Song of Chi-Ji, Mind Control, Fear, and even Blind. And I will be including a more detailed list of those disorients on screen. Although spinning is easier said than done, putting the rotation into a practical application, we are looking at using Moonfire anytime you have the opportunity to stay range, which should be a majority of the time. Now, let's say you have a rogue or hunter issue, then you would want to consider going back to that mid-range or even standing on the flag itself. Just focus on prioritizing your Moonfires as well as your Thrashes. Try and save your Bark Skin for when you're sitting CCs on the flag. In-cap roaring important spells like Cyclone when you are unable to interrupt them. And the only other consideration here is when it does come to Barkskin, at times you might have to pop it prophylactically to ensure that you don't get capped on during those disorients. And for the love of scenarios, please be sure to be running a cancel form macro to help dodge those fear beasts and hibernates. Let's just save your interrupts for the important things. Finally, trying to wrap out a fairly long video, we are going to be looking at add-ons. I highly recommend, if you haven't already, using Battleground Enemies, Wise PvP, and Gladiator Losa if you have a hard time picking up when you are dueled. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about these add-ons because I have talked about them in great detail before, but between BGE and Wise PvP, both of these give you a lot of visuals when it comes to if trinkets are used, targeting enemy players, see what they have mana, let alone where they're at, with Wise PvP specifically giving you a crosshair to help find them. Also, briefly touching on Gladiator Losa, I would recommend using this if you also need a audible cue to hear when you are dueled, let alone anyone else on your team. To do this, you would have to turn off all the other notifications, which I highly recommend, and that would lead you just to hearing when duel is being played. Rogues tend to do a lot of debuffs on you, so this only assists in making sure you do not miss when duel is cast. Well, there you go, your crash course into Guardian base sitting heading into the War Within. Exciting things are happening, and the Guardian builds are looking pretty strong. I'm excited to bring those here to you soon, but speaking of bringing you things here soon, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button because making YouTube videos takes some time and I gotta convince the wife to let me do it. But that aside, I do appreciate this opportunity and I have fun with it. So we'll see you on the next one. Take care.